Today's homily is going to be 50-50. We're going to do theology and theory for half of it, and the other half will be more practical based on, how this church is supposed to function. We'll start with the theology, if you please. So, Jesus Christ is truly King of the universe. There is no one higher than God, and Jesus Christ is God, along with the Father and the Holy Spirit. Pretty basic stuff thus far. But we take that understanding, and we gotta stack an additional observation upon it, because Christ is not a king in the ordinary sense of the word. He has no need, because he's the king of the universe, but he's also the good shepherd. He has no need for fancy clothes, for scepters or crowns. As a matter of fact, a fellow priest was talking to me about this a few weeks ago. He's saying that, a military leader, they lead from the front. You charge in with your troops where the fighting is thickest. That's where you belong. But by contrast, a shepherd leads from the back. He walks behind the flock so he can see the sheep as they're going about their business. And then as they start to wander a little too far off to one side or the other, he brings them back to the right, along the right way. So if a shepherd is doing his job well, the sheep aren't even aware that he's there. They don't feel forced or railroaded. It's more like they have a safety net backing them up. That's definitely the goal. So Christ is a different kind of king. That other kind of leadership, the do what I say or else leadership, very common in the world. Because you can't gently guide people like a shepherd in a war zone. Military leaders command their troops. It's got to be that way. And likewise, that firm leadership style is essential in business. Do this or you're fired. No boss can hope to keep his company together and profitable if all the employees just do whatever they want all day long. It's a terrible business model. And can you imagine a police officer acting like a shepherd? Like, sir, you were going 50 in a 25 zone. Could you maybe think about slowing down for me, please? It's ridiculous. That wouldn't work. They have to lay down the law. So that kind of typical leadership is all over the place in the world, and some people basically think that it's the only kind of leadership there is. People have power over you, or they don't. Think of a teacher or a boss. But in addition to all of that, you have shepherds in your life. I'm talking about guides and mentors that help you while allowing you as much control over your own life as possible along the way. That's what a good shepherd does. And Christ is the ultimate person when it comes to this, because he is the good shepherd and the king of the universe. Those two identities of Jesus are intertwined. So, kingship, shepherdship, that's Jesus. That's the theology of it. Let's bring it down to the practical now. And I can sum it up in one sentence. The priest can't do everything himself. That's where we start. That's where we're going to finish. The church has never been meant to be a small group of autocratic leaders and people who just want to be told what to do. Not the idea. We are not supposed to be this vast collection of followers waiting for a few elite people to do all the real work. And I am certain that there are plenty of people out there who think of the church in exactly those terms. But they're wrong. That's not who we are. At the heart of it, a church is an assembly of disciples. We are meant to progress in our spiritual lives and aid and encourage one another in doing exactly that. And that means at the end of the day, all of us, one way or another, are supposed to be doing something. And I mean doing something in addition to showing up for Mass. And that is important, don't get me wrong, Mass is vital. But there is more to it than that. So first and foremost, for 3 weeks in a row now, liturgical ministers, they are important. We need them. We need them for this church to function. So thank you to those of you that are serving in one way or another. For those of you that are not, I really want you to consider becoming part of the choir, helping out as a lector, or as a Eucharistic minister, because that is how the Mass is supposed to function. In terms of servers, when I have them, I am actually about a week or two away from bringing them back to their old sense of responsibilities, holding the book for me and all of that. Because whatever details we land on, the priest should not be doing everything single-handedly. It's been that way for a while because it seemed like the best way to get through COVID. And I stand by those decisions. We needed that at the time. But here we are. We're nearly at the 2-year anniversary of COVID. So it's time to put that crutch away. We don't need it anymore. A crutch does more harm than good if you're strong enough to walk without it in the first place. So consider that. Consider that. In addition to liturgical ministers and more people participating at Mass in a direct way, there are things that a church should be doing that need lay leadership, because I am one guy. I'm talking about community outreach, small group discipleship, bereavement support. These things will only exist if you care enough to make them happen. Case in point, we haven't met properly for our CIA in quite a while. Because with all of these baptisms, babies coming out of my ears, I have had so much to do on Sunday mornings, I just haven't had the time. And at my last 2 assignments, which were significantly bigger churches, I realize it's not fair to compare them to us, but at both of my previous assignments, the church had a 6-person team that met with those people every Sunday morning. And if a priest was available, they would show up and join the conversation. But if they were occupied with other things, it went on. And that is such a better system than what we have here, because when I don't do it, it doesn't happen. And we can't grow as a church if we're not actively welcoming people into the church. So that's something we can really improve on in this parish. And I've got one more example of what I'm talking about here. This is secondhand information, by the way. So once upon a time, someone came up to their pastor and said, "Hey, Father, there is this great program for pro-life ministry coming up. You should do this because it's going to be great for the parish." And the priest very wisely said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to support you, but you need to do that." And that is the correct answer. That was the correct answer, because all too often we think of the parish as something to demand things from. Give this to me, do that for me. And that's not what this is really supposed to be. A parish is more like a home base where we gather in faith in between our various ministries and tasks that we are doing in the name of Christ. And as a matter of fact, this is my last little kind of story on this topic. A Protestant study was conducted a while back. They wanted to see how big a church could be if the priest did everything. Pastor did everything. So no staff, no volunteers, bare bones ministry. And the conclusion they came to was that could be a viable church if the church was comprised of 250, maybe 300 people. That's about 2/3 the size of St. Matthew's, by the way, give or take. Anything more than that, the pastor couldn't possibly do everything himself. And that's taking into account bare minimum ministry. And the bare minimum should never be your goal for anything. So remember the Christ model of leadership. He is the King of the universe, but also the Good Shepherd. And a shepherd leads from the back, keeps the flock safe from bad terrain, and he fights off the occasional wolf. That's the priest's role. There are some things that the priest needs to do and nobody can substitute him for him. That is absolutely true. But the rest of it falls on the flock itself, because no shepherd is strong enough to literally carry the entire flock on their shoulders. Like one lamb, that's normal. You can't carry the whole flock. We have to walk together in faith. So please, take this to heart. You are not here to be passive. You're here to be active and dynamic in your faith. And Advent starts in 1 week. And that is a good time to make a new goal. I think of all the laziness that's come into my life in the last 2 years. Just my language studies have just plummeted to nothing. That's what COVID has done to us. And I am challenging all of you that we need to start shaking off some of this laziness. It's not your fault. Like, the world has done this to everyone. You've seen the help wanted signs everywhere. But at some point, we've got to start making up what we've lost. And so I would really like you to consider what you can do to make your faith not passive, but active and dynamic. Here at the parish, we've got all the tools, we have all the opportunity, but the effort and the motivation, that is something that only you can provide.